Welcome to a decisions training video where we're going to be talking about hidden entities and objects in decisions. The goal here is to look at some different types of entities that will end up being hidden or not viewable immediately when you're working in decisions. So in this, we're going to talk about what those entities are and how to find them, where you can actually look at them to edit or adjust them or change them, as well as how you might be able to change it so that they are no longer hidden in case that's something you might be looking for. So the first thing that we'll need to look at is what are these actual entities? What is able to be hidden? And so there's a number of things. A lot of them are going to be in the element registration table. Essentially, these are any designer entities, things like flows, rules, forms, reports, things like that get created, especially if they get created when you're inside the editor of another designer entity. Popular things like active form flows, for example, you're building out a form and then you add an active form flow, which is a flow that's meant to trigger and be working inside that form. The flow that's associated with our run flows for list. When you set up a matrix rule, the left columns and the top rows that or the top columns and left rows that correspond to the matrix rule are actually flows that get run. So all these things are hidden. And I'm not going to go over every single one because there are a lot there. But in many cases, it's when you're building on some kind of system, some kind of step, some kind of flow in a designer that has some extra thing that gets added to it and edited from it. There's a few others that don't quite get added, things like simple tiles you can often add, but those you can just create on their own outside of building it out in a form. Whereas these other ones, it's when you add the step or when you add the active form flow to a form or different things like that, they automatically get added. So that item is hidden and not actually visible in the folder. And we'll take a look at an example of this shortly. A couple other things that aren't directly the designer entities are various folders and things that also get tracked and are marked as hidden. Things like all the history folders of any designer entities, there's unit test folders, there's also project data folders, items like restrictions on things, if you have any permissions inside a set of folders or anything, those will be hidden, but they are still tracked, and so you can view them later. And then look and feel, which is where you add the thumbnails or the little pictures as well as the colors of any folders that you've decided to adjust and change how they look. So all of those things are also hidden and can be unhidden or viewed in different ways. So how do we access these hidden entities? Well, the first thing to think about is anything that you are looking at in decisions is a report. When you're viewing it, you see the folder data of all of the items here, your flows and things that you're building. This is a report in decisions. And what it's actually doing is that report is always filtering out any hidden entities. So when you open that page up, even if you don't quite realize it, that is a report that has a filter on it that's filtering out anything that's marked as hidden. But if you want to remove that filter, we can change the view. Now, most of the time when you're looking at these reports, you're going to be in list view. And the only way to do this is to change it to folder view. So first, if we change it to folder view, then we can click the three dots over here right above the report. And then you'll see this report that'll show that it's displaying all folder entities. If we change this, we can look at all folder items with hidden. You can also use this to look at items that have been deleted if you want. But if you change it to all folder items with hidden, it'll change the report, and now they'll be grouped by items that are not hidden, which would be all the items you normally see, but also a list of all the items that are hidden, things that are where hidden is marked as true, so you can see all of the items that are considered as hidden, and then you can go ahead and open up and access these as needed. Now, if you want to find and adjust that hidden property, you can do so using the query editor. Now, a small caveat here, you want to use caution with the query editor. Make sure you're comfortable with queries, especially because you don't want to accidentally make a change that could royally mess up what you have going in your system. You don't want to accidentally delete the wrong thing or change a value that can really mess up how something gets accessed. So just be very careful and use caution when you're working with the query editor. But essentially, you can look, the two main tables that we're looking at here are the element registration table. That's going to contain all of those designer entities that I talked about, where the active form flows can be found, the matrix rules can be found, external truth table reports, things like that. There also the entity folder table is where you find like the history folders and the project data folders and things like that. So you'll find those items there. Those are really the main two that you'll be using if you're looking for that hidden field. You can search, you select queries, but there's a column in each of these for hidden, where you can actually check and track whether hidden is true or false. And by simply updating that field on any one of your entries, you can allow that and change it so that it's not hidden and that entity is available for you to look at. Same applies with the entity folders. There's an additional field for show in tree. If you want the folders to actually appear in the folder tree on the left-hand side of decisions, you can also use the query editor to turn that on or off as well if you want something to be in the folder tree when it is a folder. So here I am in decisions. I just opened up this flows folder. You can see I'm in the list view, which is the default view, and I have a bunch of different flows and items just sitting in here. If I want to look at what's hidden, I can go up to the very top. I'm going to change this to folder view. And now this is my folder view. If I click the three dots, I have the ability to change what this is reporting on. If you want to see, if I click the edit here, you can actually see that by default, this has a hidden filter. So it's going to be filtering out anything that's marked as hidden. Um, so you can actually see that that's why it does that. But if I go ahead and change this and change it to the all folder items with hidden report and pick report, now I have false. This is all of my items that I already saw in my folder. And then I have a list of true items, and I can see all the items in here that are marked as hidden. So you can see my history folders, there's the look and feel. I have a run flows for list in this folder here. And so run flows for list has the run flows for list flow here, where I can easily take a look at it now and see what that is. And if I want to open it, I can easily click on this and just open the editor for that run flows for list flow immediately, instead of having to go into the flow that has my run flows for list step, then clicking on the step and opening the flow from there. So it's a nice way if you have something that you're using a lot of. If you want to change that view, you can open that up and actually see how it looks and where it is and things. So anything that you're looking at, you can easily make changes and take a look at items in here. Let me just show another example. If I go to this, here's a rules folder. I've got a bunch of rules in here. If I change it to folder view, click on my three dots, look at here to look at all folder items with hidden. I can go ahead and I can see all of my ones that are already here, and then I can see a list of everything that's hidden. Uh, the same kind of things here. There's folder restrictions that are the restrictions on what this folder has access to, like it can only create rules and things like that. There's all my history folders. I've got an external truth table in here, so there's the report that is associated with that external truth table. I've got the pricing chart left and top, which refers to my matrix rule that's in here. And there's also a variable, which refers to one of the formulas that I have in my rules folder here. So a lot of different things that get hidden that are directly related to various rules in my system. And I have easily can access those and make any adjustments as needed. Now, if I wanted to just show as a quick example, let's say I wanted to go back to the example of that run flows for list flow, and I wanted to make sure that this is actually just visible. Maybe I want to be able to have easy access to it, and I don't want it to be hidden anymore. So I can easily go into this folder, and you'll more than likely want to make sure that you at least get the ID of that item. So if I go and I look at this and I right click and get flow ID, I can get my flow ID for this, copy that, and then I can go ahead and open up the right click, open up my query editor, and then I can simply write a query to make that update, change the update. If you're familiar with SQL, then it's pretty easy to do this. You can just simply write an update query. I have one just kind of ready to go here. And what I can do is I can change it and say, what do I want to set the hidden value to be on this? So right now it's set to true, but I can say I want to set my hidden value to be false. So I can make sure that this ID of this particular element here is set to false. If I run it, it'll run my query. I'm going to close this. And then if I refresh in the folder view without having to change this to show hidden, I can easily find that run flows for list. So maybe instead of just having to click through the flow, I can easily just change this to folder view and click on my item immediately if I want quick and easy access to it, instead of having to always change this to all folder entities. And if I don't want this anymore to be changeable or viewable, I want this to be set back to hidden, I can just set that hidden value to true and run this again. Oops. And then there we go. And then if I were to refresh this, I should see this should be gone because it is marked as hidden. And now I don't have that accessible anymore unless I change my report again to view my hidden values. And that is how you can use and look at hidden entities within decisions. Thank you for watching.